Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Myth. So today we're going to continue the series on the MiSTer FPGA DE10 Nano project, and I got a fun video for you guys today because Wickerwaka, the core developer for the Irem M92, has basically rewritten almost half of the core, bringing us a better, more accurate, and faster implementation of the Irem M92 on MiSTer FPGA. And honestly, anytime that happens, we have to celebrate and talk about it because it is legit awesome. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined to want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. But we've had Irem M92 support on MiSTer for probably a little bit over a year now. They were separate cores, one was a turbo, and basically what Wickerwaka did was go back in and rewrite the entire CPU implementation on the NEC V33. Additionally, the turbo has been folded into the core, and there is also fast ROM loading support on some of the games. This is just a more accurate experience, and that's down to the fact that the V33 implementation has been completely redone, and you would barely notice if you weren't eagle-eyed, but there were differences, and this is just a better Irem M92 core. And the best part is, honestly, this is just filled with bangers. I'm only going to be showing you the best games here today. There's a lot on the board, but this is getting to Neo Geo levels of territory when it comes to how many good games are on one platform. And we're starting off with In the Hunt. And if you can't tell already, this is running with absolutely no slowdown whatsoever, and that is because the turbo toggle is turned on. On original hardware and all of the ports, this game could absolutely slow to a crawl. It would just become a slideshow in spots, and here with turbo on, it is a huge quality of life improvement because we're playing the game at basically full speed. Now, as far as accuracy is concerned, having turbo on definitely makes this core quote-unquote less accurate. If you want the original arcade experience, do not run turbo, let it slow down. That is what the developers at Irem intended it to do back in the day. But that's the great thing about MiSTer FPGA and these cores in Wickerwaka's work. It gives you the option to do whatever you would like. If you want the slowdown, go ahead and take it. But you'll see here, this is running at full speed. If you play the same area without turbo enabled, you're probably losing like 50 to 60% of the speed. And this game is the type of game that will slow down in engine. The game speed is tied to the refresh rate, so it'll basically feel like slow motion. Sometimes that can actually be useful. They used it a lot in Bullet Hell Shmups to allow you more time to focus. Sometimes it feels like a hindrance, so you get to pick and choose whatever you want. But as far as the new implementation on the CPU side of things and the rest of the work Wickerwaka's done, this game feels absolutely flawless. I cannot see anything, feel anything, or hear anything that makes me think this is anything other than an original arcade PCB outside of the reduced slowdown. That is the big difference here, and I think a lot of people are going to like that because personally I think In the Hunt slows down ever so slightly too much in spots. I get that sometimes it can aid you in your focus, but honestly there's some areas of the game where it just becomes too difficult with the slowdown, so this one's a straight up 10 out of 10. Now moving on to another super popular game on the platform, it's R-Type Leo, and this plays completely different than pretty much every other R-Type game out there, and that is because it did not start life as an R-Type game. It was actually converted into one, and I will say again, on the current core, with everything enabled, this is just an absolutely flawless experience. This is also an exceedingly expensive arcade board, so if you want that real arcade charm and you want to buy real hardware, you better bring your wallet, because depending on where you live, we're talking about a rent or a mortgage payment's worth of expense. Here on the current M92 core, which still is not 100% finished, this is just a banger. Everything works, the sound is great, the performance is great, all of the controls are there, and because it is on FPGA, there's no latency outside of whatever your controller could possibly introduce, so you're getting all that fast responsiveness you need in a game like Leo to be actually able to succeed. But even then, once you get to stage 4 on, this is just going to steal your quarters and absolutely mug you in the back alley, kick you in the balls, and leave you for dead hard. Well, at least it is for me. Maybe you're better than I am. And like I said, the sound on this core is spectacular as well. 45 seconds and I'll be right back with even more amazing games. That sounds exactly like R-Type Leo should, even down to some of the sound effects which I find incredibly annoying. There's just some of the weapon effects that sound like warning sirens, and I have never liked that about this, otherwise what I would consider perfect shmup. But honestly, we can't fault the core for that. Wickerwaka did not make the sound decisions on what the games use for sound effects, he just made sure they sounded exactly like they should if you were playing real hardware, and again, it's a 10 out of 10, and this is such a pretty game as well, and all of the graphics, all of the background layers, all of the effects, everything that should be here is present on the current core. Again, I cannot see anything whatsoever that would make me think this is anything other than perfect. But this is where the game just gets very hard. Once you're trying to go backwards, once the ceiling and the floor start closing in on you, and you have all of these projectiles coming, this is where you really need to practice and learn how to get good at this game, because it's going to kill you often, it's going to kill you anytime it wants to, and you're definitely going to have to quarter feed it to see the credits until you get good at it. But this is the type of game that's so incredibly fun, you're going to want to do that, and here on the current core implementation, you can do whatever you want. This is just R-Type Leo, how you know, love, and remember it, running on MiSTer FPGA, and probably a perfect implementation. Now moving over to a beat 'em up, because we've talked about two shmups, we have Ninja Baseball Batman. I think this is one of the best beat 'em up games ever made, both from a mechanic standpoint and from a pure charm standpoint. This game does whatever the hell it wants to, graphically and thematically, and you absolutely love it the entire time. It's basically a fever dream of robot baseball Batman fighting around a game, and I love all of the enemy design as well. Umpires, gloves, and then you get to a casino level and you're fighting cards. It doesn't make any sense contextually, but you always love to see what the game's going to offer you next. And again, on the current Irem M92 core that's been reworked, it is just another game that feels like pure perfection. That's the interesting thing about talking about a core that is this good. You kind of try to find areas in which you think maybe something might not be working. Not to prove anybody wrong or say that that needs improvements, but you just kind of pay attention to see if anything doesn't make sense, because that does help the core developers improve the cores. In the entire testing phase of this, and big thanks to Andy D for helping with some of the footage as well, I just can't see anything that makes me think that he even has work to do. Apparently there can be some slight corruption on some games in the high score area, but that's because of NVRAM data saving from the previous core kind of just getting stuck in ingest. But honestly, as far as the games are concerned, just pay attention to the screen, look at the action, look at all of the graphics and the colors, and you tell me if anything doesn't look correct, because usually I miss something and you guys spot it, and I always appreciate you for that. But if you've never played Ninja Baseball Batman before, let this be your reminder. You 100% have to check this game out, and the best way to play, in my opinion now, is going to be the Irem M92 core. Works really well on MAME, but MAME has a few graphical glitches that are still there last time I checked, and the core doesn't have them, but that's not a knock on MAME whatsoever. It's an incredible project, and you know I use it basically every single day. But Ninja Baseball Batman is just a wild time. This car here with these lips that come out on what basically seem like some sort of motorized actuator, I don't understand it whatsoever. You can tell the artist in this game had an absolute blast making it. I'm going to give you another sound sample because this game has an incredible soundtrack and it sounds perfect coming out of the core. 25 seconds and I'll be right back. Amazing music, and let's be honest with ourselves, who doesn't want to fight a gigantic slot machine with a jetpack in the screen while you have these dancing baseball showgirls in the background? This is just a fever dream of a game. I absolutely love it, and again, it's another game that just seems perfect on the Irem M92 core. Now let's move over to Undercover Cops. It's still a beat 'em up, but a completely different theme. This one doesn't have anything to do with baseball whatsoever outside of using a gigantic pillar as a baseball bat. And this, in my opinion, is another absolute classic of a game. It definitely doesn't rise to the levels of Ninja Baseball Batman as far as the overall spectacle is concerned, but the beat 'em up mechanics and competency and how they work is on the same level. And this one's always been a personal favorite of mine. I've just always loved the theming. I love that they have these skeletons basically just lashed to that pillar, and you'll see here it does have a little bit of Ninja Baseball Batman going on, because you can swing this pillar like you're Babe Ruth trying to knock a grand slam out of your enemy's skull. All skull jokes aside, it is just such a fun game, and that's why I keep keep saying that the Irem M92 gets close to Neo Geo levels of a library that just is filled with hits. There's definitely a few games that I don't love, and I'll show you one at the end of the video, but I really am trying to just keep this to the absolute hits, and Undercover Cop is one of them. And again, even that effect there where you get that rainbow colorway as you do that bicycle kick just looks perfect on the core. All of the graphics, all of the effects, the projectiles, everything else, just spectacular. And you know what I always say, it is not a real beat 'em up if there's not an elevator level, and Undercover Cops has you covered. And these women here hop around and make sound effects like they're one of the enemies from Splatterhouse, and I've always wondered how that happened. But Undercover Cops is just such a fun game, and this is another one that will see some slight benefit from the turbo, but honestly, in the Hunt and Gun Force 2, which I'll show you in a moment, are the ones that are going to get the most benefit because they do lag the most with everything going on screen at once. But if you've never played Undercover Cops, I can't recommend it enough. It's a ton of fun. Obviously, it's a two-player game, so bring a friend and a couple drinks and have a good time because you can play it on the core today, and if there's anything not working as expected, I would have absolutely no idea whatsoever. As I get thrown off there to my death, we're going to move on to Gun Force 2. Now this was another game that definitely would slow down pretty badly, and you'll see here there's already a little bit of slowdown going on. Do be aware that the turbo toggle is in the core, and I will show you right now how to get a hold of that, and then we'll go through some of the same area and see. Under CPU speed, you can switch it to turbo, but you do need to reset the game to make sure that adheres, and you get this fun little graphical crawl. With turbo on, Gun Force 2 is just a completely different game. And this is one where it slows down. I really think it affects your ability to play well. You will start taking some needless deaths because of the CPU speed just lagging behind where it needs to be. And that is why having this turbo toggle is so important. I would definitely say Gun Force 2 benefits the most, but leave me a comment down below and tell me what you think so far. But whatever you do think, the number one takeaway is that this core is absolutely incredible. It used to be great last year, and it's gotten even better. And honestly, getting the turbo out of Gun Force 2 just really shows what can be done on FPGA that can't easily be done on real hardware, because we come into this section here, on this standard core, this would get to slideshow territory. Think Metal Slug 2, and interestingly enough, these do share some lineage in the development process, so it's not surprising at all that both slow down. It seems like the developers just allowed these things to happen. Although on the Metal Slug 2 side of things, there was a math coding error that caused even more slowdown, so some of it was a mistake. But here on the Irem M92 core, this boss battle now is absolutely fast and absolutely fluid and plays completely differently than it ever did before. And trust me, this is the game in which I really feel that you would take unnecessary deaths because the game would lag and the controls would get slower because everything was waiting to respond. Now today on the core, this is just an 11 out of 10. It's so much better when it runs faster, and that is always a good thing. It's great that we can have these quality of life improvements as well. This boss battle here, if you don't see kind of the precursor to Metal Slug, you would definitely be blind because this looks so much like that franchise. And that's why I love this game as well. It's basically off-brand Metal Slug before Metal Slug would ever exist. And on the core, it is again a great experience. People have played through these games, they're all completable. I can't find any single visual glitch in any of the captures I have here. Everything just seems to work as you would expect. There's only one problem with the core, but it is an absolutely massive problem, unfortunately, and that is that Superior Soldiers actually works on it. This is just one of the jankiest, weirdest, worst 2D fighting games ever made, and it does go to show that not every single game on the Irem M92 is actually a fun time. This is basically a universally panned game. And if you can't tell already, this is a joke. It's not a problem with the core whatsoever, but if Wickerwaka went in and made sure that you couldn't actually play this game, I don't think anyone would complain. But short of that, that's the core. Go download it from MiSTer FPGA Discord and start having fun. We'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.